Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a really interesting look into how relationships actually work, going deep into some sources that argue maybe we've got the whole idea of love a bit wrong. Our mission really is to pull out the key ideas that show you've got to understand yourself first, like really accept yourself way before you can truly connect with someone else. It's about ditching those, standard Hollywood cliches about romance.
Absolutely. And looking at it more broadly is so important. If you only see love through that narrow romantic viewpoint, you miss the whole foundation underneath. You end up, focusing on the outside stuff, the checklist, the relationship goals instead of the internal wiring that's actually running the show. And this way of looking at it, it's great for like myth busting, shattering those fantasies we get fed.
Right, because if you don't look at that internal world, your whole view of love gets stuck in what these sources call tunnel vision.
Yeah.
So you shine that light inwards. And the first big mental block seems to be this whole concept of destiny. Let's unpack what the sources call the false prophecy.
Yeah, this theme, it tackles that really deep belief that something outside of us, fate, society, whatever, dictates how our lives turn out.
It reminds me of those lines the sources brought up. Eyes looking at me, minds thinking of me, looking into my future, speak over me. This is all you can be. It sounds so definitive, like someone else is deciding for you.
But what's really fascinating and kind of tricky is that often the source of that control, it isn't actually external. So often it's your own mind acting like it's an outsider. Your mind digs up these old, deep beliefs you have about yourself, maybe from way back, projects them out there and says, see, this is what they think of me.
Hold on. So we're basically writing a script about our limitations, handing it to other people, and then letting them direct us using our lines.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. You believe that projection is the truth, what they really think, and then you pull that belief back inside to, well, keep yourself in line. That's why the source material hits us with that key question. When did the universe abdicate my destiny to their world filter?
Yeah, and that's uncomfortable, isn't it? Because you want the answer to be them. You want someone else to blame.
Exactly. But the tough reality is the abdication happens the moment you decide to believe the story. You're the one giving away the power. And that world filter you think belongs to everyone else. Most of the time, it's just your own internal stuff, your own schema, maybe just projected outwards. So you constantly have to ask yourself, okay, do I actually believe this thought? And maybe more importantly, is believing it helping me right now? Is it serving my well-being? If the answer is no, well, then it's time to figure out when you bought into that prophecy and just, rip up the contract.
Okay, so if we're constantly wrestling with that feeling of external control, even if it's self-generated, that must just drain our mental energy.
Okay.
Which seems like a perfect lead-in to the next theme, this heavy burden of egocentricity. The idea that, I am the reason all things exist, the center of the universe. It all depends on me. What a weight to carry.
Oh, it's a huge weight because that mindset, it instantly starts an internal war. If you're convinced you alone are responsible for every single success and every single failure, well, you can't handle making mistakes. Every little slip up feels like proof that you're fundamentally flawed, not just, a chance to learn something.
But wait a second. We hear all the time about taking radical responsibility, owning our actions. How does that healthy ownership flip into this, toxic, egocentric thing?
That's a really sharp question. The line is less about the idea and more about the impact. Healthy responsibility means you accept consequences, learn, adapt. Egocentricity takes that consequence and makes it a judgment on your entire worth. And it's so damaging because it just eats up your mental bandwidth.
Can you break that down a bit? Mental bandwidth.
Sure. Think of your brain like a computer trying to run way too many programs at once. Everything slows down, freezes, crashes. That's low mental bandwidth. What the sources suggest is that this often happens because the mind's core job is just to keep you safe. That's its prime directive. So if it senses any kind of threat, rejection, failure, whatever, it goes into full egocentric mode. Okay, I need to be safe first, and nothing else matters until then.
Right. I can immediately see how that would just devastate a relationship. If my brain is totally locked on managing my own safety, my own perceived flaws, there's no room left for genuine connection, is there?
None. Zero. When you're stuck in that survival loop, you're not really hearing your partner. You're just filtering everything they say through your own anxiety. Is that criticism? Are they mad at me? Am I screwing this up? You just become emotionally unavailable. You can't really take in their perspective, their needs, their vulnerability, because all your resources are tied up fighting that internal war.
So the power comes from realizing, like the sources say, you're not your mind. You can step back, observe that safety mechanism kicking in, and maybe challenge that feeling of total responsibility. Start seeing the shared parts of things.
Observation, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the beginning. And once you start freeing up some of that bandwidth, maybe by questioning those prophecies, stepping back from the egocentric fight,
Hmm.
well, then you run into the next challenge, just the sheer volume of thoughts. Which brings us neatly to the third theme, the idea of many invitations.
I like this metaphor. The mind keeps sending out these invites, and you get to choose RSVP, yes or no.
Precisely. And the invitations. There are all those thoughts constantly popping up, rehashing old regrets, worrying about the future, imagining what could have been, running those same painful loops over and over. The danger is saying yes to every invitation, jumping into every thought stream that often just leads straight to what the sources call self-induced suffering.
Okay, give me an example. Like, what's an invitation that leads there?
Okay, maybe the thought pops up. Remember that presentation you bombed 3 years ago? Let's replay every awkward moment. If you accept that invitation, you dive in, you relive it, you cringe, you criticize yourself, you think of all the things you should have said, and boom. You end up feeling awful, stressed, maybe embarrassed, even though it's long over. That engagement is the suffering.
So declining.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot like mindfulness practice, right?
Very much so. It's that classic image. Be the witness on the riverbank, not the person jumping into the river. Your presence, your awareness is the bank. The thoughts are the river flowing past. You acknowledge the thought, you see the invitation float by, but you choose not to leap in and get carried away. It's not about stopping the river you can't. It's about not diving in.
And the self-awareness piece is being able to pause and check the invitation before you accept, like asking yourself, where does this path usually lead? If the answer is probably somewhere gloomier than I am right now, then you can just politely decline, choosing peace over, well, self-brutality, as the source puts it.
It really is the ultimate act of setting a boundary, but with your own mind. And I love how the source wraps this up. No FOMO for me. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
It's like someone who knows that party always ends badly. There's no fear of missing out on that feeling again. And making that choice, that frees up so much mental space for what actually matters.
And that freed up space, ideally we use it to build ourselves up, not continue tearing ourselves down. Which brings us to this idea of our own value and how we undermine it by thinking we're just no ordinary. I mean, the dictionary says ordinary is having no special or distinctive features, but biologically, scientifically, no two persons are exactly the same. So why do we default to thinking we're average?
This is where we hit a really crucial concept. Difference is equidistant. Think about that. It means there's no single correct place to stand to measure how different people are. You're unique. I'm unique. You're just different from me as I am from you. Uniqueness isn't a scale. It's just the state of things. Universal.
So calling anyone ordinary, especially ourselves, it's like using a ruler that doesn't actually exist, a made-up measurement.
Exactly. It's comparing yourself to some imaginary norm. So when the sources say love asks not for you to be extraordinary because that's exactly who you already are, it's a reminder. Your specific, unrepeatable mix of quirks, flaws, history, strengths, that is the extraordinary thing.
Realizing that should make self-kindness easier, shouldn't it? But we know it's often the hardest thing, which leads to kindness for me, for you. And that struggle saying, I don't deserve it, or as the source says, my story too real to give it to me. What's going on there?
That's the story too real paradox, isn't it? We know our own story inside out. Every doubt, every mistake, every embarrassing moment, it's all right here, up close and personal. And because we know our own mess so intimately, we judge ourselves harshly. But then we look at other people from a distance. We only see the surface, the curated version, and we project this kind of, effortless perfection onto them because we don't see their internal messy story.
And that comparison game just reinforces the feeling that we're somehow less worthy than everyone else who seems to have it all together. We apply a standard to ourselves we'd never dream of applying to a friend.
Never. And the sources challenge that directly. Kindness for me. No matter if you give a struggle to receive until I give to me, treating me no less than you. The kindness has to start inside. It has to be deliberate. An action you take for yourself.
Like that really simple practical example they gave, taking yourself out for coffee.
Yes. It's small, maybe, but it's concrete. When you intentionally set aside time and, yes, even a little money, just for yourself, like taking yourself to lunch or for coffee, you're sending a message to your own system. You're acting out the belief, I matter, my time matters, I deserve this moment of care. It builds self-worth from the inside, separate from needing someone else to validate you. You don't need a +1 to prove you exist or deserve a nice experience.
And connecting that self-love to the bigger picture. that powerful image of shared humanity, asking yourself, would people who love you want you to set yourself alight just so they could keep warm?
That image cuts right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It defines what real love looks like in action. If your way of showing love involves constantly depleting yourself, sacrificing your core well being just to keep others comfortable or happy, that's not love, it's self destruction. People who genuinely care about you don't want your affection if the cost is your own health, your own foundation. Because ultimately, if you burn out, the relationship burns out too.
Wow. Realizing that self-sacrifice isn't just unnecessary, but actually counterproductive in healthy connections. That frees you up for the final theme here, authenticity.
Hmm.
The sources kind of boil down all this internal work to you do you how you do, let the doing speak for you. Simple, but powerful.
And that brings us back to the energy dividend we mentioned. When you finally give yourself permission to show up as you actually are, embracing your unique way, think of all the energy you save. You stop wasting it trying to perform, trying to be this poor copy of who you think you should be based on those old prophecies or external expectations.
Yeah, the energy spent worrying, analyzing what others think, faking reactions, hiding parts of yourself, it must be enormous.
It is. And that energy, it comes back to you. It makes you feel more whole, more integrated. And when you operate from that place of wholeness, you stop needing others to fill your gaps. You stop trying to get those needs met by someone else. Stop, sapping on other people, as the source puts it. You show up to relationships not out of neediness, but out of fullness. And that changes everything about how you connect.
What a journey. This deep dive really shows how genuine connection, healthy relationships, it all starts with that radical commitment to knowing yourself, being kind to yourself, owning your unique way of being, and just refusing those mental invitations to beat yourself up. We've definitely moved past the simplistic fairy tales here. It's about building from a foundation of self-knowledge.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing to take away is just how fundamental self-acceptance and self-love are. It's not like a bonus feature. It's the prerequisite for any relationship that's going to be stable and truly fulfilling.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Remember how we said your mind's primary job is just to keep you safe, even if its methods are outdated or unhelpful? Think about how much of your negative self-talk, those old I'm not good enough stories, those prophecies, the feeling you don't deserve kindness, how much of that might just be your mind's clumsy, misguided attempt to protect you from some old fear that isn't even real anymore? So what's one conscious act you can take today, maybe even right now, to honor your own well-being? Maybe it's grabbing that coffee for yourself, or maybe it's just noticing one of those self-critical thoughts and choosing not to jump in. Do that, knowing that true love from others or from yourself would never ask you to set yourself on fire. Something to think about.